Okay, let's take a look at the homework. This is on page 3. Questions about page 3? If not, we're going to page 4. Questions about page 4? Yeah, that's the homework, page 3 and page 4. Okay, if you don't have questions, we're going to move into this week's unit. We're going to continue relative clauses, but we're going to add some new information. So we're going to be doing 2 things today. One is called prepositional shift, and the other one is relative adverbs. Okay, so first of all, prepositional shift. Last week we talked about using which, that, and also who to create relative clauses. We talked about when 2 sentences have the same noun in the subject or the object of each sentence, you can use that same noun to connect the sentences together by creating a relative clause. But what if the same noun is not in the subject or the object? What if the shared noun is in a prepositional phrase, part of the everything else at the end of a sentence? So let's take a look at this sentence. This is the dog I was talking about. First of all, is there a relative clause in this sentence? There is, right? It's actually here. We can omit it because it is this dog is the object of this preposition, right? We are talking about the dog. So sentence 2 would be, I was talking about the dog, right? Ugh, I hate it when that happens. Was talking about the dog, right? So the dog is the object of about. Prepositions always take an object, unless it's a 2 plus a verb. But usually if it's a noun, it's an object. So because it's an object, in the relative clause, we can omit that. Right? We talked about this last week. Now, here's what I'm going to introduce this week. So in the first sentence, it is let's call it this the object. But in the second sentence, it's part of the prepositional phrase. So if you use which, you also have to move the preposition. I need to stop doing that. If you use which, you also have to move the preposition, right? About the dog. We're going to turn this into which, but because there's a preposition in front, we also have to move the preposition. So the dog is which, and you also have to move the about. So it becomes, so about the dog, the whole thing gets moved to the front, about which. So if you're using that, you don't have to move the preposition. But if you're using which, you do have to move the preposition. Let's give you another example. Okay, so like I love my classmates. I hope this is true. To all of my classmates are kind and lovely. Okay, so let's put two into one. I love my classmates. Now, do we need a comma? Are we talking about the same set of classmates? Or do we have to use the second sentence to define which set of classmates? There's only one set here, right? All, there's only one. So we do need a comma. Okay, now, usually we would say repeat classmates, but in this case, it comes after a preposition. So it should go like this. All of, in this case, it's people. So whom are kind and lovely. Whom is a form of who that you use in the object position. I'm talking about him. I'm talking about this person as the object. So about whom I am talking, or yes. So in this case, because it's after a preposition, it's not only do we use the object form whom, we also move the whole prepositional phrase, not just the single pronoun. Are you following so far? 听懂举手. Okay, let's do a few more. Okay. Let's say first sentence. This is my local 7-Eleven. Second sentence. My friends like to get drunk outside of this 7-Eleven late at night. Don't do this. This is just an example. So again, if we put two into one, starting with one, this is my local 7-Eleven. Do we need a comma? How many 7-Elevens are we talking about? Just one. So we do need a comma. The second sentence is not telling you which one. We already know which one. Comma. Now, the repeated word is 7-Eleven, but it comes after a preposition. So we have to move the whole prepositional phrase to the front. Outside of which. And then we start writing out the rest of sentence 2. My friends like to get drunk late at night. Okay? 这样有听懂举手? Okay, good. So that's the first thing I wanted to tell you. If sentence 2, the shared noun is an object of a preposition, then first of all, you should use which or whom. And then you must also move the whole prepositional phrase to the front. Now, a less formal way is to use that. You can use this when talking or in informal language, but it is not the best answer. So and also like you can't use it if there's a comma, right? You cannot use that after a comma. So in these two examples, you do have to use which or whom. Gosh, I should think of one that doesn't use a comma. Okay, okay. Right. Here are some cheap cars. No, no, no. Ah. No, I can't think of one where you don't need a comma, but theoretically they do exist. I just can't think of one right now. If you have a that's just the first one here, right? So you could use that and then leave the preposition at the end, but a better way is to move the preposition to the front using which. Okay, so that's prepositional shift. Questions so far? Okay. So your classmate is saying, what if we don't limit this sentence to like, this is my local 7-Eleven? What if we just say something like, I love 7-Eleven? The problem there is that it's still one thing, and now the thing is the brand of the store. We'll leave it. Anyway, that's the idea. Okay, so if you do you have other questions about the first part, prepositional shift? Okay, if not, we're going to move into today's second part, relative adverbs. So far, we have been talking about relative pronouns. They're always a subject or an object. But English lets you create relative clauses using other things as well. Basically, the answers to the 7 questions, right? Um, who, what, when, where, why, how. Um, there's also whose. Yeah, so 7 questions. Who, whose, what, when, where, why, how. All of these can be used to create relative clauses. In other words, the thing that you use to join together 2 sentences doesn't have to be a thing. It could be a place, a time, a reason. Answers to these questions. Okay, so let's go through these very quickly. Who is for people, sometimes, or not sometimes. If you don't need commas, you can also use that. This is for people. So like, well, okay. All of these examples need commas, but if you don't need commas, you can also use that. Next, whose is of whom or like belonging to whom. This is possessive. So for example, I have a rich friend whose car costs more than my annual income. Let's add a comma here. So whose is the car of my rich friend. So how do these 2 sentences go together? What's connecting them? The second sentence is my rich friend's car costs more than my annual income. So the repeated word is friend, right? Or I guess my rich friend. But in the second sentence, it's not a noun, it's a possessive, which makes it an adjective. So instead of using who, you have to use whose. This is possessive. This is belonging to. This is of whom. The car of my rich friend, basically. Okay? Okay. Next, what is the thing that? So, um, eh, eh, okay, this is a really vague example. That is exactly the kind of movie about which I am talking. Hmm, that example is strange. Okay. Uh, 300. I can't think of an example. Why is this so hard? Tell me what you need to know. Okay, there we go. So in this case, your first sentence is tell me something. Your second sentence is uh, you need to know this thing. So the connecting word is thing. So tell me, and then thing that equals what. So tell me what, and then the rest of this sentence you need to know. As you can see from this example, this very strange pair of sentences, a native speaker of English doesn't think from two sentences combining into one sentence. A native speaker of English would simply just tell you the combined sentence. And if you're not familiar, you have to figure out how is this sentence created from two smaller parts, right? It's very common to hear someone say the combined sentence, tell me what you need to know. It is very uncommon to hear someone take it apart and say, tell me something. You need to know this thing. It's not very common. And so that's why we're spending 2 weeks on relative clauses, because you do need to recognize them. You do need to be able to understand them. Okay. Now, this might remind you of an earlier unit that we did before the midterm exam. It may remind you of indirect questions, right? The original question is, what do you need to know? But this is now stating the question. So it is not a question, it is a statement. So in fact, like relative clauses and some forms of relative adverb clauses are very similar to indirect questions, because both kinds of sentences are using question words to give information. Earlier in the semester, I said that sometimes you can get the same kind of sentence using two different grammar rules. So this is an example. Since we're talking about like different rules creating the same sentence, here's another example. Um, this is actually from last week, so I'll put it here. Um, I like uh, I like diamonds that are polished, which means I like finished diamonds. I don't like diamonds where I have to bring it to the store and tell them to clean it up, things like that. So we mentioned last week that if your relative pronoun has a be verb in the relative clause, you can omit this, right? So you can say, I like diamonds polished. But in fact, doesn't this mean the same as I like polished diamonds? Diamonds polished, polished diamonds. Same thing, different word order because you're getting to the end point using two different grammar concepts. And so, like this sentence, you can say that it is the result of a relative clause omitting the pronoun and be verb, or you can call this a postpositional adjective, which means the adjective is put after the noun. Some nouns in English have to be put after, some adjectives in English have to be put after the noun. And those adjectives are not the result of relative clauses. Because you can't say that are blank because that position is not after the noun. Let me give you an example. You're probably never going to use this word, but he is an actor manqué. Manqué means failed or attempted to but did not succeed. It's an adjective. So this sentence is basically saying he is a failed actor. So you see, right? Failed comes in front, but manqué comes in after the noun. So, like in this case, you can't say an actor who is manqué because if you say who is, the manqué doesn't come after a noun. It comes after the be verb. It doesn't fit. So some adjectives that can be used in relative clauses can be considered postpositional adjectives. But not every postpositional adjective can be put into a relative clause. Some of A can be B, but not all B are A. Okay. Some adjectives that come after the noun, all adjectives that come after the noun are postpositional, but not all postpositional adjectives can be put in a relative clause. Okay, go home, rewatch the video. Back to relative adverbs. So we did who, we did whose, we did what. Next is when. Okay, so we met at 7 in the evening when the sun had gone down. So the first sentence is, of course, we met at 7 in the evening. The second sentence is the sun had gone down by 7 in the evening. So you can see that the shared term comes in the everything else part of the sentence, right? The sun had gone down is a complete sentence. And then we have other information. That's where the shared term comes. And that's when we can use a relative adverb, in this case, time, right? 7 in the evening, by 7 in the evening. And so you put them together. We met at 7 in the evening when the sun had gone down. Now, you might be thinking, wait, what about the preposition? Didn't we just spend 20 minutes talking about moving the preposition around? Yes, if your relative pronoun is a pronoun, then it cannot include a preposition because pronouns are nouns. But this is not a pronoun. This is an adverb. Adverbs describe, in this case, describe a condition for the main sentence. Just like this, prepositional phrase describes a condition for the main sentence. So the function of this prepositional phrase is the exact as the function of this relative adverb. You literally just switch them out, one for the other. So the when, because it is an adverb, it describes the main sentence, includes the preposition. It's not, it doesn't replace 7 in the evening. It replaces by 7 in the evening. In this sentence, you need the word by, you need this preposition to connect your main sentence to the specific time. So if you are using when for the time, then if you want to connect it to the main sentence, it has to include by. The by is part of the when. Okay? And this is true for place and how and all the other ones as well. Right? Who, whose, and what, these are the 3 nouns. But then when, where, why, how, these are not nouns. So they will all include prepositions. Let's do where. We met near my local 7-Eleven where we used to get drunk late at night. Same thing, right? Second sentence. We used to get drunk late at night at the local 7-Eleven. Let me write it out for you. Okay, so if your second sentence is we used to get drunk late at night at my local 7-Eleven, this is a place. So the adverb we need is where. Right? Where just replaces the whole phrase. Um. Okay. Okay, let's keep going. Why? Why is a little more complicated because why replaces a reason, and reasons are also nouns. So, okay, you know what? There are 2 ways to do this. You can either use why in an indirect question, like this is why I did that. Let me type that out for you. This is why I did it. So like in this case, your first sentence would be, this is the reason. And second sentence would be, I did it for this reason. So the repeating is the reason part, right? And then in the second sentence, you have a for. So this is, and then for this reason is why I did it. So that's the first way you can use why in a relative clause as an indirect question. The second way is you can repeat the word reason or cause. So like I guess we can use the same sentence. This is the reason why I did it. So in this case, it's more similar to your regular relative clause because you have a repeated noun. One is reason, the other one turns into why. Okay, and then the last one is how. If you remember, how has two meanings. How can be the way, the method, or it could be how much, the intensity, the strength, the degree. In Chinese, 程度. So let's do the first one, which is the way. Um, this is the way in which I found my new classroom. So in this case, you can replace the way in which with how. This is how I found my new classroom. So let's take apart the first sentence. Number one, or I guess the first sentence is clear. The second sentence, I found my new classroom in this way. Right? So way is a noun. So we change it to which. It comes after the preposition. So the preposition also gets moved to the front. And then because we're talking about a method, you can combine all of this into how. Okay, so that's method. Intensity. Let's see if I can think of an example here. I'm having a hard time thinking of an example. Does this mean I'm wrong? You can't do this for intensity? Yeah, no, I think intensity is you can only use it as an indirect question. So just to review, um, this is how much I love my dog. Right. So this sentence is stating the question, I love my dog how much? But it's presenting the question, it's not asking the question. This is an indirect question. I'm thinking if this has a relative clause format. Yeah, no, that's it. Sorry. Okay, so for how you can only create relative clauses using method. Okay, questions so far? Okay, before we get to the practice, one last concept. And this concept is the sentence which. So the word which is a pronoun. It replaces the word that both sentences use, the noun that both sentences use. But a sentence which replaces the whole sentence. So I was very hungry. Let me stop doing that. I was very hungry, which is why I ate 3 lunches. What word is this which replacing? What is the original? What are the original two sentences? Two sentences here. Um, well, if I take it apart, okay, I'll show you. Okay, so the first sentence is, of course, I was very hungry. The second sentence is, I ate 3 lunches because I was very hungry. So in fact, you're repeating the whole sentence. This which replaces or connects the whole first sentence. So now some of you might be thinking, why use which? Why don't you just say sentence two? Well, you can, but the context is slightly different. Okay, so sentence two is I did this because of that. You first say the action and then you say the reason. Now, you could also flip it around, right? Since I was very hungry, I ate 3 lunches. Now we first have the reason and then we have the action. But the main sentence is still I ate 3 lunches, which means when you use this sentence, even when you give the reason in the first half, you are asking your reader to wait for the main sentence. The word since makes this a subordinate clause, which is not the main sentence. The main sentence begins with I. So if your reader is reading this sentence, they know that the main information is coming later. But what if you want to make the main information the hungry part? The reason is the main information. Then you can use the sentence which. I was very hungry is the main sentence. And then, which is why I ate 3 lunches, is a relative clause. It is not the main sentence. So the emphasis is different, the psychology is different, the context is different. In terms of context, if you're using this sentence, it means you already know you want to say I ate 3 lunches as the main part of your sentence. But if you're using the first sentence, I was very hungry, which, then maybe you only think of the 3 lunches thing after you begin talking. And so this would be a way to add more information onto a sentence that you have already begun. You know how sometimes you're talking and maybe you start saying something and you're not quite sure how you're going to finish the sentence? Well, people in English obviously do that too. But unlike in Chinese, the grammar is a bit more complicated. Right? In Chinese, you can just add random words at the end and your sentence will be fine. But in English, you do have to think about grammar. And that's why we have the sentence which. Because some people start talking and they realize, wait, I forgot some information. And they need a way to add that information as they keep talking. And the sentence which is one way to do that. The same flexibility is also why some grammar teachers absolutely hate the sentence which. These grammar teachers want you to always know what you're talking about before you open your mouth, which would be great if we were robots, but we're human. And sometimes we have to start talking to know what we're talking about. And for those situations, we have the sentence which is great. Haha, I just used it. Okay, so that's today's, I think we finished all of the important information related to relative clauses. Questions about this week or last week? I know it's a lot of information, but hopefully by this week you have grabbed onto the core logic and you can see how these minor variations use the same logical structure. Questions? Okay. Should I make you even more confused? Yeah, okay. So let's make you a little more confused. Let's see. I shared my 3 lunches with 2 people, both drunk, that showed up in front of my local 7-Eleven. Do you see something strange about this sentence? Do you remember the that rule? No that after a comma. So why is this sentence okay? Because this comma is not part of the relative clause. This comma is a pair with this comma. These two commas are telling you this is extra information. In other words, these are not commas. These are parentheses. Right? If you change them to parentheses, then there is no comma before that. So not all commas are created equal. Now, the really fun part about this slightly confusing sentence is that the middle part, both drunk, is also a relative clause, both of whom were drunk. And this example shows you that you can add more than one relative clause to a sentence. You shouldn't add too many because it can get very confusing very fast, but you can add as many relative clauses as you can fit into the sentence. So in this example sentence, both of these relative clauses are connected to the word people, right? Whom, people, that, people. If you keep adding relative clauses that connect with people, you get further and further away from your shared noun, and it becomes more and more confusing for your reader. But you can also keep adding relative clauses that connect with the last words, right? In front of my local 7-Eleven, where I created many fond memories with my friends who were who were also often drunk, um, which I didn't mind. So in this sentence, the where is connecting to my local 7-Eleven. The who is connecting with my friends. And then which is a sentence which. And it's connecting with this entire sentence. My friends were also often drunk. And this fact I didn't mind. So you can keep adding relative clauses as much as you want if you can make sure that your reader understands you. And in this example, they are all added at the back of the sentence, but you can also add them in the middle if you want. Let's see. Like at the intersection of Main Street and Broadway. Random street names. So at, what is the word that comes before at? How is this last part connected to the sentence? It's not a relative clause. This is a prepositional phrase. So it's connected to an earlier part of the sentence. This at is connected here. It's a place. So you're saying basically that all of this can be put in prepositions, right? In front of my local, parentheses, in front of my local 7-Eleven at the intersection of Main and Broadway. So in this example, all of the really long relative clauses are in the middle of the sentence. And once again, as long as your reader does not get confused, this grammar is fine. Because at the end of the day, a relative clause with commas is just extra information. And you can add that extra information any appropriate place in the sentence. Okay, now I'm done. Questions? Great. Let's take a short break. And while you are on your break, please do page 5. Page 5 only asks you, do you need to add commas? And if you do, where? 安心贤、史博瑞、杨仁轩、黄桂枝。哦，没有来。李增文。Yes. Number 1, please. Do we need commas? Okay. So there are two interpretations of this sentence. The first interpretation is we already know which city you're talking about. In that case, we do or do not? Do. Okay, need a comma. But the second interpretation is we don't know which city, and the reason it says the city is because the second half tells us which city. Right? So in this case, the two sentences would be we enjoyed a city. We spent our vacation in that city. So in this case, do we need a comma? Actually, no. If the first sentence is any city, and it's the second half that tells us which one, then we do not need commas. Okay. You want to try the next one? Good. Yes. In this case, there is only one Mexico City, so we do need to add commas. Good. Larry-san. Number 3, please. Do we need commas? Good. One of the elephants, which, so like this middle, hang on. Okay. So this sentence also has two interpretations. If you are saying that there are many elephants at the zoo, and we saw one of them, which only had one, oh, hang on. We saw one, okay, hang on. Of the, if you're saying there are many elephants at the zoo, and we saw one elephant that had only one tusk, then you do not need a comma. That's correct. But if you're saying, hey, talking about those elephants we saw at the zoo, so this group of elephants is already certain. And then you say one of them only had one tusk. Then we do need a comma, right? Okay, think about this. One of the elephants had only one tusk. In that sentence, do we know that you saw the elephants at the zoo? If you already know those are the elephants at the zoo, then the middle part is extra information and you need commas. But if you don't know that you saw them at the zoo, maybe you saw them on TV, maybe you traveled to Africa and saw wild elephants, and you're now telling us, no, I'm talking about the elephants at the zoo, then you do not need commas. Okay? Okay, good. You want to try number 4? Do you need commas in number 4? Yes, you do, because glass is one kind of material. There is no second kind of material also called glass. So the relative clause does not change the meaning of the word glass. It's extra information, so we do need that comma. Good. Wangshan, number 5, please. Do you need commas? Yes. Where? After Bangkok. Okay, good. Yes. There is only one city in the world named Bangkok, in Chinese, Mangu. So the second half of the sentence is describing this city. It's not changing the meaning. It is extra information. So you do need a comma after Bangkok. Good. 邱可晴、王香纯、左炳宏、王定宇、何雨涵、张怡琪、胡锦和、杨秀安。Yes. Number 6, please. Do we need commas? Okay, where? Before where? Good. In late 18th century England, there's only one country in the world called England. The second half of the sentence does not change the meaning of that word. It is extra information. We do need the comma. Good. 林佳宇，林佳宇。Number 7, please. Do we need commas? No? Okay. Good. We don't. The woman, we don't know which woman. We need that middle part to tell us which woman. So we don't add commas. Good. Nick, Nicholas, 王博璇、陈轩颖、杜轩宇、蔡依如。你是杜轩宇吗？你是蔡依如。Okay, number 8, please. Do we need commas somewhere in this sentence? Okay, there are two possible places, right? The research scientist who was, and a person who was. Do we need commas in these two places? Or at least one? Did you say no? No, good, because the research scientist, but we don't know which one. The one who wore protective clothing. We need that information, no comma. A person, we don't know which person, obviously. We need that information, no comma. Good. Questions about this page? Okay, let's skip to page 9. So these 10 sentences, each has some kind of mistake related to relative clauses. I'll give you 8 minutes. And of course, you are free to talk with your classmates. 刘一婷、李青宇、连连善、周慧云。Hi, number one, please. Where is the mistake? Did you find a mistake in number one? No? Okay, so number one is missing a word. It should be there were many people who didn't have money. We say that or that, many people that can also work. We say we can skip the pronoun if it is the object. But in this case, the sentence is people didn't have. It's a subject, cannot be skipped. So many people who or many people that. You want to try number two? Did you find a mistake in number two? Also no? Okay. So the original two sentences, the first one is, I enjoyed the book. The second sentence is, you told me to read the book. So we have moved the word the book from the end of sentence two to the middle. So turn it into that. If we have moved the book from here to here, then we don't need this. This has already been moved, right? Okay, good. Thank you. Yang Ziyun. 樊振宏. Number three, please. Where's the mistake? Okay, so the man who taught me. We don't need the he. Good, because the man and who are already the two nouns. We don't need like a third noun. Good. 陈冠尧, Saya, 刘玉安. Number four, please. Know it. I showed my father a picture of the car I am going to buy. Know it. Good. The original sentence is, I am going to buy the car. And you move the car to the front, turns into that. And because buy the car is an object, you can skip the that. There's a skipped that after the car. But we already moved the car to the front. We don't need another noun here. So know it. Good. cont'd. Number five, please. Yes, number five, please. Do you see a mistake? Okay, that is one way to solve the problem. Good. There are two abouts. We only need one. The original sentence is, I was talking about the woman, right? We don't need two abouts. So one way to solve this is just to take out this about, right? What's the other way to solve the problem? I mean, obviously to take out this one, but do we need to do something else? About I. No, you need the I. This is the subject of the relative clause. You need it. I was thinking about changing this into whom. WHOM. Because it is the object of about. Right? Okay. Why don't you try the next one, number 6. Good. The people who appear in the play are amateur actors. Another way to fix this is if you change it to the people who, it's the present tense, right? Are. The people who are appearing, who are is a be verb, so you can skip the who are. The people appearing in the play would also work. Good. On the 10. Number 7, please. Where's the mistake? Okay. Which is wrong? How should we change it? Who or that? Okay. Do we need to fix something else? How many people? One or many? So is this right? So it should be which lose, or sorry, not which, who lose, or that lose. Okay, good. You want to also try the next one, number 8? Of people who, okay, that's right. Do we need to fix something else? How many people? Pictures of people. How many people? One or many? So it should be which were. Good. Of people, sorry, not which, who were, as you said, right? Who were or that were. Wang Ziyun, Wang Yiting, 郑厚仁. Number 9, please. Did you find the mistake in number 9? There are two mistakes. They, this one. What do we do with this? Delete? Good, because these people who, right? We already have the subject is over here. We have moved it. We don't need it there. What's the other problem? This one? Good. How many people? More than one, right? So this should be who work. Good. Sanson. Number 10, please. Do you see a mistake? The comma? Okay, yeah, that's one way to fix it. There was an old man who was playing a violin. Good. What you're doing is you're turning this part into a complete sentence. And that works. Is there another way to fix it? You could just delete the who, right? An old man was playing the violin. It seems faster to me, but both answers work. Okay, questions about this page? Number 8. Okay, so in this case, the which is the subject because it is they are waiting. You're thinking of people, right? But the grammar needs to follow the original sentence, right? The original break is between these two words, right? So this is the second sentence. Okay? Okay, good. Other questions about this page? Okay, well, I'm feeling hungry, so let's stop here. Your homework is up to page 16, but please skip page 7. So from it's page 6 and then page 8 to 16. You can do 7 if you want to, but it's not related to relative clauses. You can do it for fun. All right, see you next week.